What is up, everybody? Matt Modi here to give you some WNBA bangers for tomorrow's WNBA betting slate. We're talking Thursday, June 27th. We got a massive slate of games for WNBA games on tap for tomorrow. So I'm going to go through the slate, give you my favorite bets for tomorrow. I'm actually going to have 5 for you guys to lock in, a massive slate of games. Before we can get into those picks, we do have to do a recap. And unfortunately on this season, it's been really hit or miss. Every time it seems like we're about to go on a run, we have a couple down days in a row. We're currently in the middle of having a couple down days in a row. We are down 0.09 units on the season, so essentially breaking even. But that has come down recently. We had been pretty good, then it had come down. So hopefully we can get a sustained stretch of success on the season. I'm going to be doing these as often as I can for the WNBA, hopefully getting them out the night before. So if you're interested in that, hit that subscribe button. And let's get right into it. So for Thursday's slate, I'm going to have 3 mainline plays and 2 player props. Again, a massive slate for you guys. Let's get right started. So our mainline play, our first play of the game, is going to be the Minnesota Lynx -9.5. You can get this at -110 odds at DraftKings. Now, I get that backing the Lynx might be a little square as they're coming off of an incredible performance against the Liberty. They just won the Commissioner's Cup, was very high profile. Everybody was watching that game. But the Lynx have just been on fire recently. They're playing the best basketball in the WNBA, while it's literally the exact opposite case for the Dallas Wings. The Dallas Wings are an absolute freefall, and they're still missing a bunch of players. Now, they do have Arike Ogunbowale, who's a very good player. We are going to get into her. She did miss a couple days, but she's back. But even with her and without her, the Wings have just been brutal recently. They're 0 for 5 in their last 5 games. They have not won a single game in their last 5. Unsurprisingly, they have the worst net rating in the WNBA in the last 5-game stretch as well. Net rating of -18.2, which is terrible. The next closest team in the last 5 games in terms of net rating are the Sparks at -12.4. Massive gap between them and the second worst team according to net rating over the last 5 games. And really their last 3 games have been really especially bad. They've lost to 3 of the worst teams in the WNBA in the last 3 games. They've lost to the Mystics twice, and they've lost to the Sky in the last 3 games. Now, yes, I did mention that Ogunbowale was out for a couple days. She played in some of those games as well. And I get that the Mystics and the Sky, they have been playing better recently, but that's still a pretty brutal 3-game stretch, losing to both of them, especially the Mystics twice. Really, what's been trouble for the Wings is the offense at the beginning of the year. That was really the only thing they can hang their hats on when the Wings were staying afloat to begin the season. Their offense wasn't, they're not the Liberty or the Aces, but they were fine. Over the last 5 games, they have the second worst effective field goal percentage in the WNBA, the second worst true shooting percentage in the WNBA as well over the last 5 games, with unsurprisingly the second worst offensive net rating in the WNBA over the last 5 games as well. Really bad specifically on offense. And the Lynx have really just been the polar opposite. They're 5-0 in the last 5 games. They have the best net rating in the WNBA, and really their defense has been their calling card. Their defense is now the best in the WNBA on the season and over the last 5 games by a mile. Just like the best defense in the WNBA over the last 5 games by far. Unsurprisingly, also allowing the lowest effective field goal percentage in the WNBA. And really where the Wings want to score, it's just not a good matchup for the Lynx and where their defense is stout. Now, they're a really good defense, so they're going to have really good stats across the board. But the Wings are a very heavy mid-range shooting team. They like to score from the mid-range. They've taken the second most mid-range shots over the last 10 games. I'm upping that sample size a little bit because we're looking at such a specific area of the court. So the Wings, as I mentioned, they're shooting the second most mid-range attempts over the last 10 games. In that same stretch, over the last 10 games, the Lynx have the lowest opponent field goal percentage, specifically on mid-range shots. There's another area of the court which we're going to get into with my player prop. But if you're looking, I like the Lynx to cover the spread. Now, you could take the Wings team total under as well. That's not a bad play. But I think that the Lynx win and cover, so I'm just going to stick with the spread straight up as opposed to the team total. But speaking of the Wings, speaking of the Wings not scoring a bunch of points and the Lynx having a really stout defense, my player prop for this game is Arike Ogunbowale. I'm taking her under 21.5 points, -115 odds at Bet365. That's where you can get the under 21.5. And I know that I got burned by taking a player prop under an actually pretty similar player against the Lynx on Tuesday. That was the one play that I did lose on Tuesday. Ionescu only scored 5 points in the second half of that game. She was on fire in the first half. The Lynx defense clamped down, and that 5 points in the second half was enough to cash her over because she was on fire in the first half, but that didn't necessarily scare me off of future plays backing the Lynx defense and fading players with that shot profile against them as well. There's a lot of reasons to like this under for Agumbawale, which honestly was a lot of reasons why I liked the under for Ionescu as well. Agumbawale scores 45% of her points via the above the break three-pointer. The Lynx, they're allowing the fewest points per game via above the break three-pointers. And as I mentioned, over the last 10 games, no, I didn't mention this yet, sorry. Over the last 10 games, they're allowing literally the lowest shooting percentage on above the break three-pointers from their opponents as well. So that was the second stat that I told you I was hinting at. So to confirm, the Lynx are allowing the lowest mid-range shot attempt over the last 10 games and the lowest above the break three-point shooting attempt against as well. I know that's kind of a mouthful, but really, really good guarding the mid-range. Really, really good guarding above the break three-pointers. Again, that's where Arike Agumbawale scores 45% of her shots. The next majority of the points that Agumbawale scores from is that mid-range, which, as I mentioned, the Lynx are doing a phenomenal job guarding that as well. So from there, Agumbawale scores about a little over 5 points per game at the free throw line. That's 18% of her points on the year. The Lynx foul at the second lowest rate in the WNBA. I know that the volume is going to be there for Agumbawale, which always makes betting her under scary, but it's just a really tough matchup and a really good defense that I'm comfortable riding with her under. Next up, we're heading to the Suns versus Mystics game. Speaking of unders, I'm taking the under 155.5 minus 110 odds at BetMGM. I also do, as a side note, if you're looking for a lean, I like the Mystics to cover the massive spread here as well. So if you wanted to play that, I wouldn't hate it. But my favorite play in this game, and the only official play that I'm going to lock in, is this under. And I get it's a really low number. It's really low for good reason. Number one, these two teams, looking at the Sun and the Mystics, second and third in terms of defensive net rating over the last 5 games. The Sun have the second best defense in that stretch, the Mystics third. Now, the Sun defense have been really good all year, whereas the Mystics defense has been playing better recently. And I know that the Mystics have also been better on offense recently. Part of that has to do with their schedule. Part of that has to do with getting players back. I'm still not expecting the Mystics offense to be able to perform at a super high level against the Sun defense. The Sun defense has been great all year. Even though the Lynx have been better than them recently, still the second best defensive net rating in the WNBA. So I'm not expecting the Mystics to score a bunch of points. And then on the other side of the ball, the Sun offense has been really disappointing. Over the last 5 games, they have the 4th worst offense in the WNBA, again, according to net rating. That's kind of why the Sun have been scuffling a little bit recently. They have 3-2 record over the last 5 games after starting off the year on fire. But most importantly, my favorite reason why I like this play to go under, it's because, yes, both offenses should struggle. It's because of the pace. The Sun, they play at the slowest pace in the WNBA over the last 5 games and on the entire season. That's not a new stat. They've been playing incredibly slow all year. That's how they've been winning, playing slow, slowing down the game, and playing really stout defense. That's worked for them despite their recent scuffling recently. Again, that's mostly on the offensive end. And the Mystics, on the year, they're playing at an average pace, like literally 6th out of 12 teams in the WNBA. And over the last 5 games, they've been slightly slower than their season pace, but still closer to average than anything. But really, it's the Sun being able to muck up the game, slow it down, in a game in which I expect 2 good defenses to play well, 2 offenses that I expect to struggle. Makes the under a phenomenal play in this one. That's our 3rd play. Next up, we are heading to the Aces versus the Sky. And I'm taking the Aces to cover the spread, minus 9.5, minus 105 odds at BetMGM. Now, admittedly, I faded the Aces more than anything this season. They're not as good as they were last year. This is not the matchup that I want to fade the Aces, right? This is the time that you want to back them. Now, the difference between the Aces from last year to this year, while their offense is not quite as good as like the world-beating offense that the Aces had last year, their offense is still very good. They have the 2nd best net rating on the entire season. And if you look at the last 5 games, they have a better offensive net rating than their season-long net rating is. Now, technically, it's only good for 3rd best over the last 5 games because the Fever have the 2nd best offense. But if you look at the Aces net rating over the last 5 games, it's better than their season average. So that's all I'm saying, is that their offense has been really good all year, has been even better recently. The issue with the Aces, and what's been their issue all year, they're terrible at guarding the 3-point line. They're terrible at guarding it in general, and they're specifically terrible at guarding above the break 3-pointers. On the year, they're allowing the second most made above the break 3-pointers over the last 5 games. They're also allowing the second most above the break 3-pointers. Unsurprisingly, they have allowed the second most points against them be above the break 3-pointers. Not surprising, second most in the WNBA. They're also allowing the highest 3-point shooting percentage against them as well. They just do a really, really bad job guarding the 3-point line. It's been that way all year. Luckily, that doesn't matter against the Sky. The Sky do not shoot really any 3-pointers. They attempt the fewest, they have, I should say, up to this point, attempted the fewest 3-pointers in the NBA at 14.4. That's their 3-point attempts per game on the season. Over the last 5 games, while the Sky had actually played a little bit better, that 3-point attempt number has gone down to 13.4 attempts per game. They only have one player who is in the top 10 in terms of 3-point attempts per game, Marina Mabrey, at like a little bit over 6. It's even not that high of a number. She's the 8th most in the WNBA. The next closest player on the Sky attempts 3.1 3-pointers per game. So I think that the Aces should be able to score. Their offense is awesome. And while the Sky defense is okay, I would give that advantage to the Aces. The issue here is I just don't think the Sky will be able to score on their end. So it's a large spread, another large spread that I think the home team or the favorite is going to cover, just like I do with the Lynx. And then our last play of the evening, we're heading to the Storm versus Fever game. I'm actually taking a player prop. I'm taking Jewell Loyd over 19.5 points, -115 odds at bet 365. So for our last play of the game, or of the day, let's go with a player prop over. I'm not going to have a mainline play in this one, just backing Jewell Loyd to get to 20 or more points. There are a couple of reasons why I like this play. Number one, we get to go back to our roots. Fade recent results. Jewell Loyd has only cashed this in 4 of her last 10 games. She's actually missed it in 4 straight. Of course, prior to this 4-game stretch, she had gone over in 4 of 5 games. So it's only natural for things to kind of swing back and forth. That's just the nature of player props. But also, another reason in her favor, she scored exactly 19 points twice in this 10-game stretch. Now, if she scores exactly 19, that would be a bummer. We would get hooked. That would be an under. But it's at least showing that she has gotten close. So we're fading recent results, and this is an excellent matchup for Jewell Loyd to score a bunch of points on the Fever. The Fever, while they have been playing better recently, as I mentioned, that's on the backs of their offense. They're the second best, I'm looking for, the second best offensive net rating in the WNBA over the last 5 games. Their defense is still trash. Their defensive net rating in that same stretch, they're 4-1 in their last 5 games. Their defensive net rating is at 103.8. That is the 5th worst in the WNBA over the last 5 games, which is an improvement, an improvement, not isn't. On their season-long defensive net rating, it's still a bad number overall. That would be the 4th worst in the WNBA if you just extrapolated that out to the entire season. And if you look at their last 5 games, it's a pretty easy schedule. Now, they're playing the Mystics, which chicken or egg thing, right? Is the Mystics offense better because they're playing the Fever defense? It's whatever. They played the Mystics twice in the last 3 games. That's the 3rd worst. Last 5 games, excuse me. That's the 3rd worst offense in the WNBA. This is on the whole season. They played the Dream twice in the last 5 games. That's the worst offense in the WNBA. And they played the Sky once. That's the 5th worst offense in the WNBA. That's their last 5 games. From there, that's just to kind of show you that their defense isn't actually as good as their 4-1 record indicates. The ways in which Jewell Loyd scores matches up perfectly with where this Fever defense is weak. She scores the majority of her points as the main pick-and-roll ball handler. The Fever are giving up the 3rd most points per game to pick-and-roll ball handlers. The second most frequent way in which she scores points is at the foul line. The Fever foul at the 2nd highest rate in the WNBA on the season, and they're actually above that number, fouling the most over the last 5 games. The 3rd way in which Jewell Loyd scores the most of her points, 3rd most frequent of her points come from transition. 12% of her points come from transition. The Fever have the 4th worst transition defense in the WNBA. Loyd has gone over this in each of the 2 games that these 2 teams have played this season. I like for it to be 3 for 3 tonight. Let's hope that happens. Let's hope we have a great WNBA game on this massive slate of 5 games. But that is all we got. I appreciate everybody for watching. Again, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and have a good one.